Who is the Holy Spirit? The shocking truth at 3 a.m. will haunt you forever. The clock struck 3, a haunting hour, when shadows merged with the whispers of the night. In that eerie stillness, a figure cloaked in darkness stood at the edge of a dilapidated church, its crooked steeple looming like a finger pointing to the sky. What secrets lay within those crumbling walls? The air was thick with anticipation, each breath echoing a promise of the unknown, a shiver of fear coiling around the heart. It was said that the Holy Spirit roamed these deserted aisles at the witching hour. Prayers lingered in the air like ghostly echoes, and the atmosphere crackled with unseen energy. A flickering streetlight cast a pale glow, illuminating the ancient symbols carved into the stone-forgotten shields, twisted crosses telling tales of warriors and lost souls who might have encountered the divine. Suddenly, a light flickered from a stained glass window. It shimmered unnaturally, casting vibrant colors on the ground outside, even though no one was inside. A shiver raced down Jamie's spine as she stared, entranced. What the hell? She thought, her heart pounding like a drum. Her tight chest screamed for air, but she couldn't look away. It was as if something or someone awed her into stillness. As whispers floated on the wind, she stepped closer, tentative but drawn by an invisible force. The stories were everywhere, lurking behind every forgotten pew and dust-covered altar. The locals had warned her. They said those who sought the truth often found a darkness far deeper than they anticipated. Behind every blessing there lurked shadows that never revealed their origins. And just like that, the night seemed to shift. A cold breeze swept through, wrapping around her like a chilling embrace. Jamie's thoughts spiraled. What if it's true? What if the Holy Spirit isn't just a legend? With her heart racing, she could barely feel her trembling hands, as panic rose like a tidal wave. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she turned to leave, something caught her eye, a flicker of movement inside the church. Her heart thudded, an insistent rhythm in her ears. The somber facade seemed to shift, beckoning her to return. The shadows deepened, and faced with the choice to flee or to uncover the mystery, she stood frozen, torn between fear and an inexplicable urge to learn the truth. Who or what awaited her behind those heavy doors? With bated breath, she took a step forward, one foot in a chasm of dread and destiny, inching closer to a revelation that might haunt her forever. The wooden doors creaked ominously as Jamie pushed them open, her fingers brushing against the worn edges. The air was suffocating inside, stale yet electric, as if the very walls held their breath. Shadows danced wildly, twisting and receding in the corners, eager for company. "Hello?" Her voice was barely a whisper, swallowed by the oppressive silence. It felt like the building itself was listening, waiting. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to run from this place that felt soaked in centuries of secrets. She took another step, and a chill ran through her, raising goosebumps across her arm. Then, unexpectedly, the flickering light from the stained glass window faded, plunging the church into darkness. Heart racing, she fumbled for her phone, its cold screen glowing like a beacon of hope. The light revealed worn-out pews scattered like forgotten memories. Dust motes floated through the beam, shimmering softly. Yet something lurked just beyond that dim glow. A sudden crash echoed from the altar, sending Jamie's heart into a frenzy. She steadied herself, breathing in short gasps. The noise hadn't been a product of her imagination, she couldn't ignore it. It felt like a call. With each cautious step towards the altar, her breathing quickened. The silhouette of something, a shadow or a figment of her panic, moved just out of sight. She strained her ears, listening intently as faint whispers began to surround her, seeping out of the very walls. They pooled in her mind, words jumbled yet strangely soothing, as if comforted by her presence. "Jamie," they beckoned, sweet yet chilling, like the first bite of a candy coated in bitterness. "Who's there?" She dared to ask, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Silence. Then the whisper spiraled, swirling with questions and truths. Seek the light. Find the lost. Each word pulsed with an urgency that made her break. The scattered teachings of her childhood flooded her mind. The Holy Spirit, they said, was a guide, a comforter. Could it be true? A golden hue began to seep through the cracks in the altar, illuminating dusty relics and forgotten texts. Jamie's eyes widened as the light danced before her, weaving patterns that seemed to pulse with life. The church transformed into a canvas of vivid colors, the shadows retreating, revealing a hidden sanctuary. She took a tentative step forward, drawn by a force she couldn't name. "What are you trying to tell me?" she murmured, her courage sparking like a flame against the impending dark. The quiet intensified, the whispers converging into a singular note of despair. Truth? Or a warning? Then a sudden plunge into silence engulfed her. No sounds, no motion. The very air around her thickened with tension. Fear gripped her chest, but the shimmering light beckoned, having no intention of revealing its secrets without a price. Before she could process, a figure emerged from the light, shrouded in reflection and mystery. It stood tall, more vibrant than the stained glass itself, and the whispers crescendoed into an urgent roar. Jamie's heart slammed against her ribs. What had she unearthed? "Jamie," the figure intoned, its voice echoing through the chamber, deep and resonant. "You've walked into the truth and the shadows that both frighten and illuminate. Do you wish to know? To see what lies behind the veil?" With her heart thundering, Jamie could only nod, a storm of anticipation and fear surging within her. Would she emerge enlightened or trapped forever within this secret? As she prepared to seek the ultimate truth, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if the light was just a cover for something much darker? The moment had come. What would await her as she hovered on the edge of revelation? The figure stepped closer, gliding rather than walking. Its features were indistinct, hidden in shadows, yet something about its presence stirred an overwhelming familiarity within Jamie. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, then opened them again, half expecting to wake from a bizarre dream. But no, this was real. So real that she could almost taste the electric air. "Do you wish to see the truth?" it repeated, urgency lacing every word. "The truth that is both light and dark." Who are you?" she barely managed to whisper, her throat dry, heart racing like staccato drum beats in her chest. The figure raised an arm, and the light infused into the air flickered, swirling around them like a living thing. "I am the voice of the lost. I am the guardian of what remains hidden." An overwhelming wave of dread washed over Jamie. Guardian? What was being guarded here? "What do you mean, lost?" "Those who sought the truths you now chase, they never returned." Chills cascaded through her. The warnings, the sense of foreboding, they were not just flights of anxiety. There were dangers here, remnants of those souls that had ventured into these halls before her. "Seek and you shall find," the figure continued, its voice echoing softly, yet echoing louder with each word. "But know this, the light cannot shield you from the darkness that lurks in the corners of your soul." The air shifted, and a sudden rush of cold hit Jamie, like icy fingers tracing along her spine. She fought the urge to step back. What revelations awaited her? What darkness had she invited into her heart with her curiosity? "Why do I feel this pull, this connection?" "Fear and longing are entwined," it replied, the shadows dancing around it as if mirroring Jamie's turmoil. "Many are drawn to the light, but understanding the darkness leads to true enlightenment." An unsettling thought struck Jamie, sparking alarm. Could she truly bear the burden of such knowledge? The very air felt heavier, suffocating, like a weight on her chest. Yet she took a step forward, propelled by instinct. "I want to know everything. Tell me." "Follow the whispers." The figure gestured toward the altar, the flickering hues of gold turning into eerie shades of gray, the light fading like a candle snuffed out in a gust of wind. "But beware, Jamie, some doors should remain closed, for what's inside might consume you." The warning pricked her skin like needles. Jamie shuddered, yet a stubborn resolve began to build within her. She had already crossed the threshold into the unknown. Retreating felt impossible. The lure of discovering the truth, even if it harbored a terrible cost, overshadowed her fears. Turning back towards the altar, Jamie braced herself. The whispers crescendoed again, now resonating with a pulsating urgency. They beckoned to her, promising secrets, and she knew she had little choice but to follow. As she stepped closer, the altar trembled, and the very stones seemed to breathe with life. It was as if hidden memories, long buried, roused from their slumber. With each whisper that danced through the air, Jamie felt the shadows reaching out, fingers curling around the edges of her sanity. "Remember, Jamie," the figure's voice echoed, fading as she ventured deeper into the sanctuary. "You have the power to reveal or to destroy. The light will guide you, but what you uncover, could it bring salvation or doom?" With every heartbeat, the intensity thickened. The shadows grew thicker, swirling around her like a storm, breathing down her neck. Jamie's mind raced. What if the truth was worse than she imagined? The moment she reached the altar, she stood on the threshold of revelation. What would she face as the depths began to unravel? And then, with a hush, she felt it, the resonance of something old and restless hidden within the aching silence. It was watching. Waiting. In the distance, a low growl ripped through the air, a sound that sent her heart racing anew. Whatever she sought, it was closer than she ever expected, and so were its consequences. Jamie's breath caught in her throat as she faced the shadows, a sense of urgency overtaking her. What lay ahead threatened to change everything. Would she be ready for the truth at this hour, when the veil between light and dark blurred dangerously? In that moment, she wondered, was she strong enough to unveil what lurked beneath? Why did she feel a sense of inevitability? And what if the cost of that knowledge was more than she could bear? A tremor rumbled beneath Jamie's feet, a violent echo of the growl that had ripped through the air. The stones beneath the altar trembled, each vibration seeming to pulse with untold power. Just as she leaned closer, a deep scraping sound drew her attention, like metal being dragged across the stone floor behind her. With her heart hammering, Jamie whipped around, but the shadows loomed too thickly to see any contours. The figure was gone. Panic coursed through her, a blistering rush that sent adrenaline shooting through her limbs. She could feel the pressure of unseen eyes, and that same sense of inevitability clamped down on her, tightening like a vice. "You wanted the truth," whispered the air around her, a cacophony of voices mingling into one. "Now you must face its price." Jamie pressed her palms against the altar for support, her breath quickening. The whispers coiled tighter, drowning out the low growl, while the shadows began to dissipate, revealing a slick, obsidian box embedded in the stone. Its surface shimmered unnaturally, as if the darkness itself had been condensed into this object, a physical manifestation of all the things she was beginning to dread. Fighting the impulse to retreat, she took a step toward it, heart racing. She could almost hear her pulse in the silence, an urgent drumbeat calling her forth. What lay within? Would it reveal the answers that gnawed at her spirit? As Jamie reached out, the box trembled in response to her touch, vibrating with latent energy. She hesitated, a chill seeping into her bones, urging her back. But something deep within screamed for knowledge, for understanding. Her fingers brushed against the surface, and electricity surged through her body, an electric jolt that brightened her vision and darkened her thoughts all at once. Images flooded her mind, faces she didn't recognize but felt intimately connected to. They flickered like candle flames, blurring and shifting as if caught in a gale. "Who are you?" she gasped, pulling away. "What do you want from me?" The box stilled, but the air thickened with an intensity that felt almost alive. "Open it and see," the voices whispered, softer now, like a distant lullaby hiding a sinister intent. Jamie's resolve faltered, the weight of her choice crashing down. What if she opened it and nothing changed? What if she uncovered horrors better left unseen? The thoughts clawed at her, clawing through the fog of her determination. "Remember the loss," the deep growl echoed again, closer this time, and Jamie felt an almost magnetic pull toward the darkness of the box. It tempted her with promises of clarity, knowledge she never dreamed existed. But she knew, the moment she breached the surface, her reality could fracture, splintering her life into pieces too jagged to comprehend. A loud crack resonated like thunder, and the box trembled again, a warning. The shadows surged as her breath grew rapid, the decision pressing down on her like the weight of 1,000 lives. "Jamie!" A voice boomed from behind, cutting through her swirling thoughts. She turned to see the figure emerging from the shadows, its form clearer now, yet still cloaked in enigma. "You must choose now." The uncertainty twisted her gut. The cost was so great, and in this moment, every instinct screamed at her to flee. But Jamie felt anchored, bound to this moment of decision with a cruel thread of fate. Truth called to her, but would she be able to handle its revelations? The ground heaved violently as the blurred line between choice and consequence threatened to rip apart. The whispers roared, drowning out the low growl, as Jamie stood frozen, the time for her decisions slipping through her fingers like sand. And then, in that moment of impending doom, she whispered, "What if I don't want to unveil what's beneath?" "Then you may never leave," the figure replied, its voice a chilling echo that slithered through the air and burrowed into Jamie's mind. With trembling hands and a heart on the brink of terror, Jamie had to ask herself once more, was she ready for what lay beyond the darkness? Or would she remain lost forever? As the shadows coiled tighter around her, she realized the truths she sought could tear her existence apart. Would she dare to look? Or would the fear of the unknown crush her spirit before she could answer? The air around Jamie crackled with tension, the murmurs intensifying into a maddening chorus that clawed at her consciousness. Every instinct screamed for her to run, yet her legs felt bolted to the ground, the altar radiating a magnetic pull she couldn't resist. She could feel her heart thundering in her chest, echoing the low growl that seemed to reverberate from deep within the bowels of the earth. "Choose!" the shadowy figure insisted, its silhouette now sharp and defined against the fading gloom. Fear turned into desperation as she searched the figure's features for the truths she sought. Who were they? Were they a guardian? A harbinger? Or perhaps something far worse? "What do you mean by never leave?" she whispered, dread curling in her stomach. The shadows around her tightened, warping the edges of her reality. "Open the box, Jamie. You'll find more than just the answers. You'll find the reason for everything if you dare to confront it." She glanced back at the obsidian box, its surface gleaming ominously beneath the prickling starlight. Part of her wanted to slam it shut forever, wrapping herself in the false comfort of ignorance. But another part, a raw, hungry part, yearned to discover the truths buried inside. Just why did she feel so connected to those fleeting faces? What dark, twisted fate had entwined their existence with hers? A rumble echoed, as if the earth itself were urging her to act. The figure stepped closer, its voice low and velvety, yet laced with an undercurrent of menace. "Just a single moment of courage. That's all you need, Jamie. One choice. One truth." Jamie took a deep breath, her entire body trembling. She felt the weight of every life connected to her pressing against her soul. A decision loomed, bigger than she could comprehend, a plunge into the depths of knowledge and consequences. But would the truth set her free, or create chains that bound her forever? Suddenly, the shadows erupted with blinding fury, swallowing the last light in the chamber. She gasped under the crushing darkness that enveloped her. The whispers turned into wails, horrific cries of despair and longing. Memories crashed in like waves, each one a piercing reminder of loss, betrayal, and the inescapable truth that haunted her family. "Open it!" the voice commanded again, shaking her from within. "Unveil what was hidden!" There's no turning back. With her heart pounding louder than any growl, she reached out once more for the box. A shiver shot down her spine, and she grabbed its cool surface, feeling a bizarre mix of dread and anticipation. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to push through the fear. As her fingers slid to the clasp, the earth quaked violently, sending vibrations through her body. She hesitated for a moment, then, with one swift motion, released the clasp. The lid burst open, unleashing a wave of shadows that rushed past her, sweeping her into a tempest of darkness. Images flickered before her eyes, nightmares, hopes, and an ocean of unshed tears. "Jamie!" the figure called out, but it was lost in the chaos. a haunting echo of concern swallowed by the wails of the unknown. The contents of the box swirled like storm clouds, coalescing into a luminous mist that began to resolve into shapes she recognized. Faces emerged one by one, her mother's smile, her father's stern gaze, friends she'd loved and lost all her life. "Stop!" she cried, overwhelmed. "What does it all mean?" But the shadows spiraled tighter, spinning around her like a vortex, drowning her pleas in a furious cacophony. They howled stories of longing and regret, simultaneously giving life to her memories while twisting them into something grotesque. As Jamie struggled to catch her breath, the world tilted dangerously, drawing her deeper into their depths. "Face the truth," the figure intoned, slowly materializing beside her, their features now shrouded in eerie light. "Only then can you find your way back." Would she stare into the abyss, or let it consume her? Would she confront the reality of her lineage, or retreat into ignorance, as she leveled her gaze at the chaos, her heart thumping with equal parts fear and resolve? She could barely hear the words echoing in the tumult. "Will you embrace what you run from, Jamie? Or remain forever lost?" The moment hung, thick and suffocating. In that terrifying instant of choice, Jamie realized she was no longer just fighting for answers, she was wrestling with the very essence of her existence. And just as the last whisper faded into silence, she knew the next choice would shatter everything she thought she understood. If she stepped forward, what horrors awaited? What shards of truth could decimate her world or set her free? Only the shadows knew, and they were waiting, whispering. The mist thickened around Jamie, a swirling tapestry of memories and shadows that pressed against her like a vice. Each visage that flickered in the gloom felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Her heart raced, caught between the urge to flee and the desperate need to understand. She could feel the energy shifting, an unseen force compelling her deeper into the memories that lay scattered like shrapnel from a shattered dream. "Embrace it," the figure urged, its voice echoing like a drumbeat in her ears. The shadows danced and writhed, as if alive, eliciting a primal fear from her core. Jamie couldn't escape the sensation that something ancient and powerful lurked just beyond her reach, watching her with hollow eyes. A face broke through the mist, a distorted mirage of her mother, eyes filled with sorrow and desperation. "Help me, Jamie," the apparition whispered, each word laced with agony. The moment sent a shock through her, twisting a knife in her gut. She could feel the love she had for her mother, but this distorted version felt wrong, incomplete. "Stop this!" Jamie cried, lunging at the apparition. But as her fingers brushed against it, the image dissolved like smoke, leaving behind a chilling void. "What do you want from me?" she shouted into the swirling darkness, rage and confusion coiling tightly together. "This is your truth now," the figure stated calmly, unfazed by her fear. "You control the narrative. What do you wish to remember? What do you wish to forget? Why does it feel like a curse?" Jamie whispered, her voice faltering as she grappled with the weight of all she had lost. To choose was to invite pain back into her heart. Yet, what was the alternative? To let the memories rot in the shadows, buried but festering? As the chaos intensified, drowning out her thoughts, a new face emerged, a boy she had once known, the one she had loved before the darkness had swallowed him whole. His smile tried to pierce through the storm, but the sorrow draped across his features revealed a deeper truth, one that struck like lightning in her core. "Let me go," he murmured, each syllable tasting of bitter regret. "We're all intertwined in this. You must decide." "Decide what?" she roared, her voice a mixture of panic and defiance. "Why should I choose to hurt again?" "Because," the figure interjected with a ghostly quietness, "every choice will shape your reality. Each truth will fill the empty spaces of your heart." Jamie felt the squeeze of the shadows tightening, as though her reluctance was feeding the chaos. A voice simmered in her mind, saying that only by facing the painful moments could she reclaim the light. But the shadows around her hissed, enticing her to remain hidden, to allow ignorance to be her refuge. "Jamie!" The voice of the figure snapped her from her spiral. "Face what you've buried. Only then will you find your path forward." Breath caught in her throat, she narrowed her gaze at the obsidian box, now pulsating with energy, a draw she couldn't ignore. It called to her, promising answers to questions she hadn't even formed yet. With shaking hands, she breathed in deeply and felt something ignite within her, a flicker of courage meant to push through the vice of fear. With one decisive step, she thrust her hands toward the swirling shadows, each gesture laced with determination. "I choose to know." In that moment, the shadows erupted around her like an angry storm, and the faces exploded into a kaleidoscope of color and sound. The tempest swirled and howled, growing unbearably loud, drowning everything in an ocean of noise until one voice rose above the chaos, a child's giggle breaking through the darkness, pure and untarnished. "What else lies in store for me?" Jamie wondered as the laughter danced around her ears, pulling her deeper into the chaos. As clarity began to emerge from the maelstrom, Jamie felt a pull in a new direction, a path that would either breathe life into her anguish or swallow her whole. What awaited her down that road? And would the choice she just made lead her to liberation or tether her to an overwhelming truth? She wasn't ready to accept? The answers writhed just out of reach, tantalizingly close yet obscured by the turbulence of her storm. The laughter faded, replaced by an unfamiliar silence. But she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The silence clung to Jamie like a shroud, thick and oppressive. She strained to catch a glimpse of the path, illuminated only by the residual energy cascading from the obsidian box. Each second felt endless, a vacuum swallowing her resolve. Jamie's heart thudded against her ribs, echoing her fear of what lay ahead. Around her, the mist twisted and melded into disturbing forms, ghostly silhouettes of faces she recognized but could barely remember. A distant hazy memory of laughter flickered, turning into a twisted scream that pierced the silence. Jamie clenched her jaw, wading deeper into the chilling silence. Every step was a challenge against the weight of the past. "What do you truly seek, Jamie?" The figure's voice cut through the air, lingering like the smell of burnt sage. It felt both far and near, as if calling from the depths of her very soul. "Are you ready to shoulder the truth?" The shadows danced menacingly, and Jamie's skin prickled at their cool caress. "I'm not afraid," she shot back, though doubt spiraled in her chest. "I want to understand. I need to see." And just like that, the darkness flickered, revealing a series of fragmented images, moments from her childhood, her mother's smile, the boy, his laugh like a melody turning sour. Each image spiraled before her, faster and faster, until they merged into a blinding light. She squeezed her eyes shut, shielding herself from the onslaught. "Don't turn away," the figure commanded, the strength of its voice forcing Jamie to confront the spectacle before her. "This is the crucible of your experiences. Embrace it." With a reluctant inhale, Jamie opened her eyes. The light transformed into scenes she couldn't ignore, her mother hugging her tightly, tears streaming down her face, laughter from friends that cut like a knife, turning to whispers of betrayal, the boy's expression frozen in sorrow. "What is this?" she gasped, overwhelmed by the rush of memories. Each one felt like daggers, piercing her heart, making her long to escape. But the figure stood firm, refusing to relent. "You must accept the fractures to find your wholeness," it said softly, the intensity of the shadows softening ever so slightly. "Only then can you forge a new path." Jamie's breath caught, each word carving deeper into her psyche. Was she willing to relive the pain? To journey through moments she had buried so fiercely? "Remember," the figure pressed on, "the light of truth can only shine through this darkness." A consuming wave of sorrow crashed over her, as she recalled the very last moments with her mother, a final goodbye tainted by unspoken words. The boy's face materialized, surrounded by halos of laughter that twisted into despair when she remembered the last promise they made, a promise lost. Would facing these moments release her from the grip of the past? Summoning courage, Jamie proclaimed, "I will not let fear anchor me. I choose to see, to feel." As those words spilled from her lips, the obsidian box erupted in energy, boiling over, swirling shadows crashing like surf against rocks. Memories grasped at her like hands reaching beyond the veil. In that heart-pounding moment, Jamie was propelled forward, the ether bending around her as swirling colors and piercing sounds plunged her deeper into her fractured history. As the cacophony turned to whispers, She could make out something she hadn't noticed before, voices murmuring secrets she both longed to hear and feared to confront. The air pulsed as a name escaped her lips. Mom. An icy chill brushed her skin, and she felt a flicker of warmth in her heart, a thread of hope woven into the darkness. Then something changed, a presence materializing from the layers of shadow, a truth waiting to unfold. But before she could grasp it, everything fell silent again, the air thick with anticipation. What truth was lurking, ready to unravel, and would Jamie be brave enough to face it head on? The shadows shifted restlessly, and something dark whispered her name. Jamie. The call lingered, drawing her closer into the depths, teetering between despair and revelation. Would she survive the fullness of what she'd find? And if she emerged, would it be into light or further into shadow? The chill tightened around Jamie as the silence deepened. Breaths caught in her throat, suspense thickening like honey in her veins. She stepped forward, heart racing, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching her, observing, judging. Shadows can't hurt you unless you let them, the figure whispered, its voice now an echo that rolled through the mist. Yet Jamie felt less assured than ever. In the fleeting embrace of its words, a flicker of doubt nagged at her core. Who are you? She asked, the question spilling from her lips like a prayer. She couldn't ignore the urgency flooding through her, an instinct guiding her to peel back the layers of this nightmare. The figure hesitated, as if weighing the cost of the truth. Shadows coiled around its form, coiling like snakes. I am your reflection, the shadow of your fears and hopes. I am the part of you that knows the true meaning of loss. A wave of confusion crashed over her. It felt like the very essence of her being resonated with the figure's proclamation. Can you help me? The question lingered, fragile and trembling. Help is not what you seek, it replied, eyes gleaming in the dark. You crave understanding. Understanding comes at a price. Jamie felt her pulse quickening. What do I need to do? Face your memories, it urged, shadows swirling around them like a tempest. Only then will you find the key to unshackle the pain. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and before Jamie stood a doorway formed of whispering fog, beckoning her closer. Tendrils of light and shadow entwined, and as she stepped forward, an electric thrill coursed through her. In the swirling mass before her, images began to coalesce, scenes morphing into clarity. She saw herself as a child, sitting on the wooden porch of her childhood home. A warm summer day enveloped her, laughter spilling through the air. But then, darkness crept in her mother, clutching her hands tightly with tears tracing her cheeks. Mom? Jamie reached out, but the image warped. Suddenly, there was the boy, looking conflicted, the joy of youth twisted into uncertainty. What happened? She felt the tears sting her eyes as memories surged like tsunami waves. Do you remember the last time you saw her? The figure pressed, its intensity reaching an almost unbearable height. Jamie steadied herself, the weight of the question heavily anchored in her chest. I didn't get to say goodbye, the figure nodded solemnly. Exactly. But that is where the truth resides. Seek it. The scene shifted violently. Jamie found herself back in her mother's hospital room, the beeping machines a haunting backdrop. The sterile smell of antiseptic flooded her senses. Her mother's frail hand slipped from her grasp just as Jamie desperately tried to express all the words left unspoken, the love, the regret, the promise of tomorrow. Tell her, the shadow urged softly, and Jamie felt the heartache twist in her gut. Tell her I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, I was too young to understand. She cried into the throbbing mist. Each word echoed in the vast silence, crashing into the walls of her heart. Suddenly, the world around her exploded into a blinding white light, a kaleidoscope of color dazzling her senses. The screams of the past crescendoed until they morphed into whispers. Her mother's voice was among them, soothing yet urgent. Jamie, find me with that. There was a violent tug, a sensation like being pulled from the depths of the ocean up to the sky. She clung to the memory of her mother, but the darkness loomed, threatening to pull her back into despair. Wait! The urgency rang through her mind. I need, but the figure raised a hand, its expression shifting to one of concern. Every truth demands courage. Will you let go? Will you step through? Jamie hesitated, the future blurred and uncertain. A choice lay before her: a leap into the unknown or remaining paralyzed by her past. Before she could respond, she felt a searing pain shoot through her chest like the crack of thunder, and everything around her spiraled away. What awaited her on the other side? Was it redemption, or a deeper fall into chaos? And as she grappled with the tightening grip of fate, she realized the truth was closer than she'd ever imagined. Jamie, a final whisper echoed, her name sliding through the shadows like a ghost. What awaited her in that universe of possibilities? Would she finally find her mother? Or would the darkness consume her entirely? The white light enveloped Jamie as she felt herself slipping through the membranes of existence. The world around her twisted, spinning at breakneck speed, and she gasped, fighting against the oppressive force that threatened to dismantle her very essence. She squeezed her eyes shut, heart pounding like a drum echoing through the void. When she opened them again, she was no longer surrounded by mists but rather a sprawling expanse of shifting shadows. The air felt heavy, saturated with unspoken fears and forgotten regrets. It was a landscape of broken memories, and she was at its center. Welcome back, the figure appeared beside her, its voice tranquil yet unsettling. You have much to face. Where am I? Jamie's voice trembled, her eyes darting around the foreign landscape. The deeper shadows seemed to pulse, whispering secrets she could barely comprehend. This is your mind, a manifestation of your fears and memories. Here, truth resides in the darkness. The figure gestured to the shadows swirling around them. Jamie took a cautious step forward, the ground beneath her cool and unyielding. But what do I do? How do I find her? Her voice was filled with desperation, emotions bubbling to the surface. You will find the door, the figure declared, every word infused with a haunting calm. But only after you confront the memories you've buried. Suddenly, scenes erupted from the shadows, bright flashes of her past weaving in and out like old film reels. She saw her father, his face creased with disappointment, the ghost of her childhood laughter fading from his eyes. She saw friends, their faces twisted in anger, the echoes of abandoned friendships suffocating her. Why are they here? Jamie's body quaked, torn between shame and anger. They are pieces of you. Each carries a fragment of your shame, your sorrow. The figure faded slightly, becoming more ethereal as if it could dissipate like fog. Face them. Only then will you find the bridge to your mother. As Jamie struggled to confront her past, emotions washed over her like a relentless tide. She stumbled and fell, memories crashing over her, words unsaid, tears shed alone, moments forever etched with guilt. Each step deeper into the shadows brought her closer to a revelation, yet she felt the darkness suffocating. Why won't you leave me alone? She cried out, voice cracking. Because you won't let go, the figure whispered, drawing closer again. You cling to the pain, but remember, pain is only as powerful as you allow it to be. Jamie's heart raced as realization washed over her. She was in control. I need to forgive, the words felt monumental, a weight she'd carried for far too long. But before she could grasp that thought completely, the shadows began to swirl violently, their whispers crescendoing into an anguished scream. Jamie, you must choose. A voice echoed through the chaos, a mix of familiar warmth intertwined with torment. And then she saw it, a flicker of light shimmering like a beacon within the chaos. It was a door, but it looked heavy, rusted with the weight of time. Through the cracks, she could glimpse flickering images of her mother's smile, soft yet distant, shimmering just beyond reach. Mom. Jamie reached out instinctively, love surging within her. But now, another wave of doubt crashed over her. Would stepping through that door lead to reunion, or was it another trap orchestrated by the shadows? The shadows roared around her, swallowing her resolve. She needed to decide, and fast. Step through or you will lose her forever. The figure bellowed, the urgency seeping into every fiber of Jamie's being. Which path would she choose? Could she truly let go of her past to embrace the unknown? Time seemed suspended as she faced the door. Was it the key to her salvation, or a descent into deeper chaos? And with her heart racing and doubts flooding in, Jamie took a deep breath, hand trembling as she reached for the door's rusted handle. Would she finally unlock the truth of her heart, or was she about to open Pandora's box? As Jamie gripped the cold, rusted handle, the chaos around her simmered, the shadows shifting and trembling with a pulse that matched her racing heart. This is it, she thought, grappling with the enormity of what lay ahead. The door loomed before her like a portal to her past, the whispers drawing her in with a magnetic force. Each breath she took was heavy with fear, yet beneath that weight lay a flicker of hope that on the other side, she might find the answers, the closure she'd been longing for. Do it! The figure urged, its voice an insistent echo drilling into her mind. Only you can step through. With trembling fingers, she turned the handle. The door creaked open, releasing a burst of light that flooded the shadows, illuminating memories that had long been locked away. The air shimmered around her, a kaleidoscope of colors, warmth, and love intertwined with sorrow, unraveling the fabric of her fears. She stepped through, and the world transformed. In an instant, Jamie found herself back in the hospital room where she'd last seen her mother. The sterile smell of antiseptic wrapped around her like a familiar shroud, but this time, the atmosphere buzzed with a softer energy, imbued with an aura of love. Her mother sat in the bed, frilier than she remembered, yet she was aglow with a radiant peace that filled every corner of the space. Jamie, her mother's voice, low and soothing, wrapped around her heart like a warm embrace. You came. The emotions crashed over Jamie: longing, love, guilt. I didn't say goodbye, she admitted, tears cascading down her cheeks. I thought I lost you forever. Loss is just a part of love, her mother replied, her eyes brimming with understanding. But you don't have to carry this alone anymore. The shadows are powerful, but they only hold sway if you let them. The remnants of fear coiled in Jamie's chest, but with each word from her mother, that grip seemed to loosen. I've been too afraid to face the truth, afraid of what it might cost me. Her mother reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against Jamie's. All the truths you've sought, the pain, the memories have led you here, to me. You carry the power to transform them into something beautiful. You must remember, you are not defined by your shadows. Jamie felt the warmth of her mother's words seep deep into her soul, a comfort and a challenge all at once. She closed her eyes, letting the memories wash over her. Her childhood, filled with laughter and love. The heartbreak of loss. The boy, the love that had flickered and faded like a dying star. Can I really let go? Jamie whispered, her heart aching with the weight of all that she had borne in silence. You must, her mother urged. Release the pain, Jamie. It doesn't belong to you anymore. It's time. With fresh courage, Jamie opened her eyes, meeting her mother's gaze. I forgive you, she said, her voice steady yet laced with emotion. I forgive myself. I wouldn't allow the past to shackle me anymore. As the words left her lips, the room pulsed with an energy that knocked Jamie back, a burst of light that engulfed her. The shadows that had once clawed at her edges began to dissolve, retreating into the corners like a tide receding from the shore. Her mother's face glowed brighter, a peace radiating from her very being. You're free now, my love. Embrace all of you. Then, just like that, Jamie felt herself being pulled back. The hospital room faded, replaced by the swirling shadows of her mind. But now, they felt different, less daunting, less oppressive. They shimmered with a newfound light. As she stood in that cacophony, Jamie smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's love filling the empty spaces within her. I choose to live, she declared, standing tall against the echoes of her past. I embrace my truth, my memories, and my love. I will not be afraid anymore. Slowly, the shadows began to shift, revealing paths instead of walls. Each path shimmered with potential freedom from the past, a release from the weight she had carried. Understanding that her journey would continue but that the burden would no longer haunt her, she gave a final nod to the figure who had guided her. Thank you, she whispered. And with that, she stepped onto the new path, feeling the light growing stronger with each decision she made to let go. The shadows faded completely, the figure dissolving into the light that now surrounded Jamie. She could finally see her future, bright and full of promise. As she walked forward, leaving the remnants of her pain behind, she knew this was merely the beginning. And with each step, the scars of her past began to heal, no longer defining her journey but shaping it into a beautiful tapestry of resilience, love, and enlightenment. This is it, my friends. If you enjoyed the wild journey Jamie just took, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash the like button now. Your support feeds the algorithm and helps us grow. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What did you think of Jamie's choices? Do you believe in the power of truth and forgiveness? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It could change everything. Your support matters more than you know. Let's carry this journey together.